The guitar case was faded and warped from humidity, but the name tag on its handle was unmistakable. Emma Albright. It had been 9 years since anyone had spoken that name in this part of Knoxwood, Maine, without a whisper of dread. The discovery came from a routine property inspection in the outskirts of town. The workshop, a rusting structure lost between pines and frostbitten silence, had been scheduled for demolition. It was empty but for old tools, scattered sheet metal, and the guitar. The case was closed, literally, and for nearly a decade. Emma Albright was 15 when she vanished in the spring of 2013. A gifted student and promising musician, she was last seen walking the half-mile stretch between her high school and the community arts center, where she attended private guitar lessons every Thursday at 4 p.m. She never arrived, and no one saw her again. Her disappearance ignited one of the most intense missing persons investigations in Knox County history. Search dogs tracked her scent halfway along the wooded path between the school and the music center, a well-used shortcut students often took. But there, the trail stopped cold, as if the ground had simply swallowed her. Back then, the guitar was never found. She had left the school carrying it over her shoulder, confirmed by both a teacher and a classmate. But when the community combed the woods and police searched drainage culverts and abandoned vehicles, there was no sign of it. Some thought maybe she had dropped it and run, chased or frightened. Others speculated she was lured away. But the guitar had vanished with her, until now. It was early April 2022 when City Records clerk Miriam Ford was tasked with final site logs for decommissioned properties. The building, located along Old Mill Road, about 6 miles from the school, hadn't had an owner on file since 2009. When she walked into the structure with 2 city workers, it felt untouched by time and memory. Then, behind a half-collapsed workbench, they spotted the black rectangular case. Inside, the guitar was intact, lightly warped from moisture but still recognizable. The name tag on the case confirmed it. This was the missing girl's instrument. The local police reopened the case within 24 hours. Detective John Krause had led the original investigation in 2013. Now near retirement, he returned as consultant. "This is the first physical object we've had since Emma disappeared," he said. "It's not just symbolic, it's forensic." The workshop was sealed, the guitar sent to the state crime lab in Augusta. Within days, trace evidence was catalogued. Partial fingerprints, a single blonde hair not consistent with Emma's genetic profile, and 3 distinct fibers found inside the case lining. 2 synthetic, 1 woolen. At the time of her disappearance, Emma lived with her mother, Susan Albright, a single parent and nurse at the local hospital. Emma's father had died when she was 9. The two shared a small home off Maple Drive, and by all accounts had a warm but private life. Emma's weekly schedule was rigid. School ended at 3:20 p.m. She would walk straight to the Knoxwood Community Arts Center, arriving no later than 3:50. Her instructor, Reuben Heller, reported that she never missed a session, was never late, and was progressing quickly on classical acoustic guitar. She had a recital scheduled for late June. The last time he saw her was on April 18, 2013. He waited for 40 minutes before calling her mother. Susan answered from the hospital and immediately called the school by 5:30 p.m. When Emma hadn't returned home and no one had seen her since dismissal, Susan called the police. The timeline was narrow. Witnesses placed Emma walking through the school gates at 3:25. She waved to another student near the side road. That was the last confirmed sighting. Her route through the wooded trail behind Canning Street was a common one, but poorly lit and not monitored by cameras at the time. The initial investigation focused heavily on the woods. Hundreds of volunteers helped search the area for 2 weeks. Divers swept the nearby Quarry Lake. Nothing. Her phone had last pinged at 3:34 p.m. near the northern edge of the woods. Then it went dark. By the third week, the tone of the investigation changed. Flyers became faded, the news cycle moved on, and a week before what would have been Emma's 16th birthday, the case was officially suspended, pending new leads. Now, 9 years later, the guitar, a Gibson Hummingbird acoustic serial number filed by her mother in the original report, was back. And with it, the memories, the questions. The workshop where it was found had no connection to Emma, her family, or her routine. It had belonged to a now-deceased welder who, records show, sold the property in 2009 before moving to Arizona. But there were footprints in the dust near the case, fresh ones. Investigators estimated that someone had entered the space within the last 6 months. Detective Krauss reviewed the original case files and found a curious note from 2013, an anonymous tip left on the station voicemail claiming a girl was seen crying near a shed off Old Mill Road days after the disappearance. The caller didn't leave a name. The location was never linked, and the tip was dismissed. Now, with the guitar found just miles from that report, everything was being reconsidered. At Susan Albright's home, the curtains remained drawn. A small shrine of photographs and dried flowers sat untouched on the kitchen table. She declined most media inquiries. But in a brief interview, she simply said, "I told them back then that Emma wouldn't have run. She had plans. She had that guitar." Forensic teams returned to Old Mill Road. Soil samples beneath the workshop floor were collected. Cadaver dogs brought in. In a corner of the building, near the east wall, beneath a panel of loose floorboards, they found something else, a torn page from a school notebook, crumpled and yellowed by time. The handwriting matched samples from Emma's journals. It contained just one sentence: "I thought he was going to help me." The case was now no longer dormant, it was wide open. The page recovered beneath the floorboards was verified within 72 hours. The handwriting analysis matched Emma's with 96% certainty. More importantly, the ink used, faded black gel, was consistent with the pens Emma was known to carry, confirmed through school records and her mother's statements. But the fragment, "I thought he was going to help me," offered more questions than answers. Detective Krauss requested the crime lab expedite analysis of the other materials recovered from the workshop. One of the 3 fibers matched a rare wool blend manufactured for marching band uniforms used between 2007 and 2011. That detail, though obscure, stirred something in Krauss's memory, a name that had surfaced briefly during the early days of the original case: Caleb Miles. Caleb had been a senior at Knoxwood High School in 2011, 2 years before Emma vanished, and a volunteer instructor for the school's after-class music program. His name appeared once in connection with the Community Arts Center, having signed in to use the practice rooms 3 times in March 2013, just weeks before Emma disappeared. He was never interviewed thoroughly. At the time, there was no known connection between them. The new findings changed that. Caleb, now 28, was working as a mechanic in Watervilders, Maine, about 40 miles north. Krauss and a state investigator visited him at his workplace. He denied ever knowing Emma and said he hadn't been in Knoxwood in years. When pressed about the Community Arts Center, he admitted using the rooms but couldn't recall specific dates. He said he stopped volunteering once he graduated, but phone records from 2013, retrieved again after a court order, told a different story. Caleb's number had pinged near Old Mill Road, the site of the workshop, on the evening of April 18, 2013, the same day Emma disappeared. The original investigation hadn't subpoenaed his data. There had been no reason to. Now, there was. Detectives reviewed surveillance footage from businesses near the path Emma had taken on that day, particularly a gas station located 2 blocks from the school. At the time, it had outdated security equipment. The footage had been archived, but not thoroughly analyzed due to resolution issues. A new digital enhancement run revealed the faint outline of a dark-colored pickup truck, parked adjacent to the Woodline Trail between 3:20 and 3:40 p.m. Cross-referencing DMV records, they located a match, a 1998 Dodge Ram registered to Caleb Miles at the time. Further search through Caleb's online history, dormant accounts, and archived emails revealed a forum post from March 2013 on a music-focused message board. Using the username Gearhead211, Caleb had responded to a thread titled, "Where do you store your gear if your place is too small?" In his comment, he wrote, "Got a locked shed out off Old Mill Ard. Not mine, but empty since forever. Good for amps when I'm tight on space." That shed, the workshop, was where the guitar had just been found. Emma's mother, Susan, was updated cautiously. She remembered Caleb's name from a flyer years ago, where he was listed among the community center's volunteers. "He taught percussion once," she said. Emma said he was quiet, said he gave her a ride once when it rained. That detail was never in the original report. It had slipped through. Investigators dug deeper into Caleb's life in 2013. He lived alone in a trailer 2 miles from the school. His criminal record was clean, but a neighbor from that time, a retired bus driver named Shirley Dobbins, remembered something odd. He came home late that night, had a tarp over something in the bed of his truck, drove straight to the back and unloaded it behind his place. Her report never reached police in 2013. The interview hadn't been conducted. She had assumed the investigators had talked to everyone. "I figured it wasn't important," she said now. A ground search was initiated behind Caleb's former property. A cadaver dog indicated interest near the base of a buried burn barrel. When excavation teams arrived, they uncovered layers of compacted ash and melted plastic. Forensic teams retrieved fragments of nylon, zippers, a metal belt buckle, and the partially melted remains of a student ID badge. The plastic warped, but the name still faintly legible, Emma A. The discovery was pivotal. It confirmed that Emma, or at least her belongings, had been moved post-disappearance. Confronted with this, Caleb remained composed. He admitted using the shed, maybe once or twice, but denied ever owning a burn barrel. He claimed he had sold the pickup in 2014 and had no memory of what he stored. But investigators now had enough to obtain a search warrant for his current residence. Inside, they found several music accessories, an old capo, unopened guitar strings, a metronome. Nothing directly tied to Emma until they opened a box labeled college stuff in his attic. Inside was a memory card from an outdated mobile phone. It was turned over to digital forensics. 2 days later, the team recovered a series of deleted images. Most were blurry, meaningless. But one photo, time-stamped April 18, 2013, at 3:52 p.m., showed the back of a young girl walking along a wooded path, a guitar case slung over her shoulder. The image was taken from inside a vehicle. From the passenger seat, no one could say, definitively, that the girl was Emma. Her face wasn't visible. But the time, the guitar, the route, the time-stamp, it all matched. Still, the evidence was circumstantial. Without a body, without a confession, charges would be difficult to sustain. The prosecutor advised caution. "We're not there yet," she told Krauss. "But we're close." Meanwhile, investigators revisited one more element from the original investigation, a voicemail left anonymously on April 21, 2013, 3 days after Emma disappeared, never traced, never publicized. It had simply said, "She was crying, he told her to get in, it was the truck." The voice was male, young, possibly a teen. The call came from a prepaid phone, never recovered. Now, with the guitar found, the page hidden, the burn barrel remnants, and the reappearing image, the past was no longer buried, but it wasn't yet fully exposed. By early June 2022, the investigation had regained momentum, not seen since 2013. The discovery of Emma's guitar, The handwritten note and the photograph from the memory card had transformed what was once a cold case into an active inquiry teetering on the edge of indictment. Still, it wasn't enough. Detective Krauss, driven by the narrowing window before his mandatory retirement, pushed for deeper scrutiny into the early case files. He noticed something odd. Caleb Miles had never been assigned a formal interview, yet his name appeared in 2 separate community center logs. On both occasions, he'd signed in within 24 hours of Emma's lessons. The logs had been dismissed at the time as volunteer overlap, but now, with hindsight and suspicion, it looked less coincidental. The detectives reviewed the reconstructed timeline from April 18, 2013, 3:20 p.m. Emma leaves school, 3:25 p.m. Last seen turning toward the shortcut path, 3:34 p.m. Her phone pings near the woodline, 3:52 p.m. The photo from inside the vehicle is time-stamped. 4:10 p.m. Emma's mother, Susan, receives a text from Emma's number. "Running late, back soon." This final message had always stood out. Emma rarely texted her mother unless necessary, and this text contained one subtle anomaly. It omitted punctuation. Emma's texts always included periods, even at the end of short sentences. Susan had mentioned it. No one had listened. Digital forensics re-examined the metadata of the message. It had been sent from Emma's phone, but the typing pattern analysis, newly developed software not available in 2013, indicated a deviation in speed and syntax. It was almost certainly not typed by Emma. Investigators turned their attention to an abandoned structure near Caleb's old property, a shipping container, rusted and forgotten at the edge of a retired logging route. Its door was padlocked. When opened, it revealed little. Decayed sleeping bags, a stack of old band posters, some warped magazines. But tucked inside a thermos was a set of keys. One belonged to a Dodge truck. Another, oddly, to an old mail drop box, the kind found on country roads. That box, still standing and bolted in place 2 miles away, was rarely used and hadn't been checked in years. When police accessed it, they found a single item, a folded piece of paper containing 4 first names and 3 dates, all in block capital letters. One of the names was Emma. The date matched April 18, 2013. The paper was turned over to the FBI's behavioral unit. It resembled a behavioral ritual, a pattern or log maintained by someone trying to catalog specific events. 2 of the other names, previously unknown, were run through databases. One belonged to a girl who had gone missing in Vermont in 2010. Her case had remained unsolved. The last known sighting of her, a music festival, security footage had captured a man nearby, tall, with dark hair and a knit cap, grainy and unusable at the time. When agents compared that footage to photos of Caleb Miles from 2010, the similarities were strong enough to warrant serious attention. But it wasn't definitive. Caleb had an alibi from that weekend, vague but documented. Back in Knoxwood, a new witness surfaced. Ellen Granger, a retired school librarian, had recently moved to assisted care. Her niece, while sorting through old boxes, found a journal where Ellen had jotted observations during her neighborhood walks in 2013. April 18, 2013, saw that Miles boy again, idling in his truck, just sat there watching. "I crossed the street." The entry was dismissed at the time by her family as routine gossip. Now, it was an unprompted observation, aligning precisely with the time and location Emma vanished. Ellen's statement, though circumstantial, added another layer to the profile forming around Caleb: consistent proximity to Emma, indirect access to her schedule, and now, confirmed presence at the critical location. Still, Krauss knew they were missing the smoking gun. Then came a call from the state forensics team. Partial DNA had been recovered from the interior lining of the guitar case. Male, degraded, but viable for comparison. Caleb's DNA had never been collected during the original investigation. This time, a warrant was issued. A swab was taken. 2 weeks later, results came in. Partial match. Familial link. The DNA wasn't Caleb's, but someone closely related. A brother. Kraus stared at the file. Nowhere, in any of the initial background checks, had the name Matthew Miles appeared. Born 1987, older by 6 years. Last known address, Caribou, Maine. No arrests, low digital footprint, but employment records listed him as a janitor at Knoxwood Community Arts Center from January to May 2013. He had worked in the same building Emma was headed to that afternoon. The name had never come up in the original investigation, not once. The team now had to ask a chilling new question. Had they been looking at the wrong brother all along? The revelation of Matthew Miles's involvement reframed the entire investigation. He had slipped through unnoticed. A quiet background figure who had access to the music center, keys to storage rooms, and, potentially, familiarity with Emma's schedule. His employment there lasted just 5 months in 2013. He resigned, citing family relocation. 1 week after Emma's disappearance, the coldness of that timing spoke louder than any confession. Detective Kraus pulled the old files again. The original employment roster from the community center had been partial, hastily collected in the days after Emma vanished. Matthew's name hadn't made it onto the version investigators received. Bureaucratic oversight, or something more deliberate. The police issued a BOLO for Matthew Miles. It was soon discovered he had left Maine in late 2013 and relocated to upstate New York under a variation of his name, Matt Miles. He had worked odd jobs, warehouse work, janitorial positions, seasonal labor. He'd kept a low profile, no arrests, no social media. It took less than a week to track him to a small trailer park near Watertown. On the morning of August 3, 2022, federal agents and state investigators approached his residence with a warrant. Matthew complied. He was quiet, not resistant. When asked if he remembered Emma Albright, he paused and said, "I remember her guitar." That was enough. Matthew was taken into custody. DNA was collected. It matched the partial sample from the guitar case. He was read his rights, but no confession followed. In interviews, he maintained a chilling neutrality. He didn't deny knowing Emma. He didn't admit to harming her. He spoke in circles about music, about lost time, about things we can't undo. Inside his trailer, investigators found several notebooks, all dated after 2013. Most were filled with song lyrics, pages and pages of disjointed thoughts, and phrases like, "She didn't scream, still hear the strings, time is a loop, not a line." In one, they found a sketch of a wooded trail with a figure walking alone, guitar slung across her back, no face, just the outline. Below the drawing, he had written, "That was the last sound." Matthew was never formally charged with murder. Without a body or definitive cause of death, prosecutors opted for unlawful imprisonment, obstruction of justice, and evidence tampering. Still, the case remained open, and the DA left the door open for additional charges pending future discoveries. The town of Knoxwood was left fractured by the case's partial resolution. The community center was shuttered for good. Emma's mother, Susan, never spoke publicly after the arrest. Her final statement to the press was brief. "She was always coming home in my heart. Now I know why she never did." Caleb Miles, though not charged, moved out of state shortly after. No legal connection tied him to the crime, but public suspicion followed him wherever he went. He refused interviews. His last known address was in Ohio. As for the guitar, it now sits in an evidence locker, sealed and tagged, the last remaining witness to a path no one saw end. 9 years after a girl vanished on her way to music class, what was left were fragmented truths, unanswered questions, and a silence that never really lifted from Knoxwood. The woods near Old Mill Road were cleared in 2023. During the excavation, surveyors found a depression in the earth beneath a cedar tree. A search team was sent in. They uncovered a shallow grave, long collapsed and weather-worn. Inside were pieces of clothing, faded jeans, a tattered sweatshirt, and beneath them, 2 small metal pins, one shaped like a treble clef, the other with the words, "Music is freedom." Emma had worn them both. They were listed in the original missing person report. The remains were skeletal, incomplete. But dental records confirmed it. The case was closed, legally, not emotionally. In the final report, filed by Krauss on his last day before retirement, one line stood out beneath the evidence summary. Justice can name a suspect, close a case, and offer a headline. But justice can't undo silence. It can't restore a song that was never finished.